Hey, and welcome to another edition of Momentum Mondays. This is Phoenix, the college success professor, and we are talking about academic momentum. And it's very important to know what you need to do to make sure that you start off next semester, fall 2023, if you are a first year college student or if you're a returning college student. What you need to be doing this summer to make sure you get the academic momentum to make sure that you are on track for graduation. So I had a great weekend. I went to a graduation party of a family member, and it was a fun time. And also this week we're starting the orientation sessions for the incoming class of students who are going to be starting in the fall. So this is a very important topic and one that I want people to be aware of because although high school is over, classes are over, graduation parties are in full swing, there's still things that need to be done before the semester begins. And I think the sooner you start on these things, the better in the long run for your academic success in the fall semester. For those of you who don't know, my name is Phoenix, the college success professor. I do online stuff, but I actually do work at a college in the academic support services office. I manage the services in the office. So like this is one of the many topics that are near and dear to my heart, making sure that students are academically successful at college. So let's get started on the things that you can do if you are going to college in the fall, or if you're a parent of a child who is going to college in the fall. So as you know, or as you may not know, if you got accepted and you're planning to go, you should have been contacted about orientation, which is the time where most universities have you register, or the first step for you to register for classes before you actually get to campus. So that encompasses a bunch of different things. For some students, it can involve placement testing. So that is something that is important that you need to consider when you're taking the placement test. That will determine what actual classes you are in. So sometimes there are math placement tests, sometimes there are language placement tests. There are a variety of different placement tests. And so many times it's June, and so high school classes have ended, and high school graduation is mainly on the minds. But there are some things that you need to be thinking about right now to make sure that you have a successful fall semester. And those things are making sure you have the right set of classes for registration for the fall, and also making sure that you're taking things like the things that you have to do in order to register. Like sometimes you have to take a online class, or you have to do something. Different schools have different requirements. You have to do something online so that you can attend orientation and make sure you're in the right classes. So that is very important. So placement testing, making sure you're in the right classes, making sure that you are registered for your orientation session. You want to register. I know they may have sessions all throughout the summer, but you want to make sure you get in early so that you can make sure that you are being strategic or thoughtful or considerate about the classes you're going to take. You may even want to do some things in advance of your orientation session. I was able to actually just Google some information for the school where my family member is going, and you can have like the full, mock schedule of what a typical first semester student takes. You can actually figure out or decide what is in your best interest based off of your academic strengths and talents. Usually there's going to be an English requirement, a math requirement, a science requirement, but depending on your major, it can be a bunch of different things. But you should and will have options. Sometimes it's like an orientation full class that you have to take, but getting a better sense of what you're going to have to take before you actually have to register, and getting a better sense of the academic expectations and like the course load is going to put you in a better position than you just showing up and picking anything. Because your first semester is going to be very important with regard to making that GPA as high as it can possibly be, so you can continue to get that full scale momentum in order to be successful. But let me get into my notes, because I do have a lot of notes on this topic. However, my battery is not fully charged, so we'll see how far we get. So a couple of things that I have written down here that I wanted to talk about specifically. So when we talk about your academic momentum, there's actually research on the things that students do in before they actually go to college or while they're in college. That can increase their momentum, their academic, for lack of a better word, ability to be successful in college. And so one of those things is making sure that you are getting the right amount of credits. And that's why I say it's important to really take this orientation period or the period where you're picking out your classes very seriously. Because usually, typically, depending on your major, you take 15 credits per semester, 16 credits if you have like 4 credit classes, 16 credits. And sometimes for some students, you start off with 15 credits, but you don't end up with 15 credits. If you are struggling, or if you decide to withdraw, or if you decide to change your classes because of difficulties. And so the academic momentum is important because in order to graduate in 4 years, which is usually the goal, but not always the case, in order to graduate in 4 years, you have to keep the momentum of taking and passing 15 credits per semester. So that's why I say you need to be strategic with regard to what classes you're taking. So if you know you have some past negative experiences with certain subjects like math or writing or things like that, you want to take that into consideration with regard to what time you're taking those classes, who you're taking those classes with, and your ability to seek out help at the first sign of difficulty in those classes. So when you take those placement tests, sometimes you are placed in a class based on your performance on that placement test. So you definitely want to do as good as you possibly can on that placement test. You don't want to do anything that would place you at a different level than you really should be. Another thing that some schools do that also prevents students from being able to accumulate the required 15 credits or the recommended 15 credits is sometimes you take the placement test, and the placement test, like a math placement test, will put you in a required course that's not necessarily the required course for your major. It's a lower level course in order to prepare you for the higher level course. So that can also sometimes be a detriment to you. But being aware of that and knowing that this course is to prepare me for a higher level course so that you can take that in the summer or some other time, that is what is important. So making sure that you're taking your placement testing seriously, that you're taking and thinking purposefully about what classes you're taking classes that you are, if you have a choice between a class where you are academically strong and academically proficient, taking that the first semester and maybe waiting until a later semester. And all of this depends on the advising that you get from your school and the professionals at your school. But making sure that you are setting yourself up for a successful semester. This is not the time to just, take whatever they give you. It's a time for you to advocate for yourself, for you to communicate what your strengths are, for you to communicate what your interests are, what your goals are, and things like that to the person who is helping you to pick out these classes, and taking this process very seriously. So that is one. So also I wanted to say that in addition to the academic credit accumulation, there's something that is sometimes referred to, depending on your major, like if you were in like the science, the engineering, the technology, the computer science, the math courses, which can be difficult. There are sometimes what they are called gateway courses or weed out courses, where they may be really, really challenging and really, really difficult for many students to pass these courses. And so having that in mind, taking that into consideration when you're registering, taking that and figuring out what the resources are for students who are in your major, resources for how you can be academically successful is going to be very important. So we're going to be talking about today some of the different things that you can do, some of the mindset shifts, some of the belief systems that are important for you to be able to be successful in those historically difficult or commonly difficult majors, and what you can be aware of so that you can be successful. So we talked about credit accumulation. We talked about gateway course completion. So those could be like those science classes, those anatomy classes, sometimes math classes, sometimes even writing classes. These are entry-level courses that are prerequisites. That's a college term that you may not have heard before. And a prerequisite is basically something that you have to take in order to take the next level of class. So for example, if you are interested in majoring in nursing, or sometimes pre-med or something like that, you have to take an anatomy and physiology course, usually as your foundational course. That is a prerequisite before you get into the other higher level courses. That's a prerequisite. So sometimes the prerequisites are really, really challenging and really, really difficult. And sometimes the professors who are teaching these courses can be, depending on the goals of the school, the goals of the program, can be helpful or not as helpful as possible in making sure that you're successful. So that's why they're called sometimes weed out courses, because sometimes the intention is to weed out the students who they don't think are going to be successful. And so if you find yourself in that situation, then there's definitely some strategies that you can do independently, but being aware of that earlier rather than later, and not thinking that just because in high school you were able to pass with not doing a lot of work, knowing that that's probably not going to be the case in college. So that's an important thing. So academic credit accumulation, gateway course completion, and also making sure, like I said earlier, that you're making 15 credits each semester. So at the end of your first year, you should have 30 credits and you'll be able to transition to the next year, 15 again each semester, all the way to your senior year. And you should be able to graduate in 4 years, assuming you don't have to withdraw or you don't change your major or things like that. So that's the path to graduate in 4 years. Also, what's important is trying to make sure your GPA is as high as possible. 3.0 or higher is the goal. Now, not saying that 2.9 and 2.5 or 2.75 is not okay, but research says that in order to be very secure in your progress through the different years, a 3.0 is a strong foundation. So many students, like I said, struggle with one course, one gateway course, one difficult course. But having that set as a goal, having the 3.0 as a goal is definitely going to lead you to be more successful than not be successful. So those are the 4 things that are important for academic momentum. Making sure that you are taking the credits, passing the credits, making sure that you are passing those difficult courses, those gateway courses, making sure you have that GPA that's required, and making sure that you have at least, like I said, 30 credits during your freshman year. So that's important. So let's get into what we mean when we say academic mindset and academic momentum, and how to make sure that you are doing what you need to do in order to be successful academically in college. So, like I said, I do have a lot of notes on this topic. So let's see what we'll get into. So when we talk about academic momentum, it's important because, and I've talked about this in the past, the difference between high school learning and college learning is significant. There is a level of expectation that many college professors have that is very different from the experiences that most high school students have experienced. There's a new kind of learning that happens. And even I experienced this when I was taking college level classes, because that's one of the benefits of working in college. You can take college level classes. And in high school, what's usually required is for you to be able to regurgitate or, give back the information that was presented to you. You were taught about, this specific topic or this specific idea, and you're just asked to remember. Basically, it's based on memory. However, in college, it's a different level. They're expecting you to not only know that content, but expecting you to be able to apply it, to synthesize it, to be able to, it's something called Bloom's taxonomy of knowledge that we're not going to necessarily get into, but it's not just the foundational knowledge of did you understand what happened? It's, can you apply it to this specific situation in economics? Can you apply this specific instance to something that is in the scientific realm? Can you apply this process to the real world? And so that is the different level of learning and a big adjustment that many high school students have to make when they are transitioning to the college level learning. So it's a different type of learning. It's a different type of academic and cognitive demand on students that takes a while to adjust to, especially if you have never taken a college level class before. It can be very stressful and a very steep learning curve for some students. So let's talk about what is going to be important for you to be able to transition effectively in order to be successful in college. So number one, your academic engagement. And this is something we've talked about a little bit before. So your academic engagement means your ability to participate in class. So your ability to ask questions, to do the reading in advance, to participate in the discussion, to actually engage with the other classmates in a dialogue, engage with your professor with the different things that are going on in the classroom. So that level of engagement is going to be important in college because it's also going to give you an opportunity to show that you have done the reading or show what you've done, what your knowledge base is and how your understanding is. It's also a good opportunity for the professor to see exactly what needs to be explained a little bit more, where your levels of understanding are missing or there are gaps and things like that. So there's an important part of college level work. You're hopefully in class with a bunch of other really intelligent, really people who are interested and are passionate about whatever you're studying. And the engagement that happens in the college classroom is going to be an opportunity for you to learn on a deeper level, for you to learn on a more conducive level. So that engagement is important. And not only your ability to do that inside the classroom, what often college students do not get at the high school students who don't often get at the college level is that the learning that happens outside of the classroom, that's really important. So in high school, you do what you do in your high school, and you may have a little bit of homework, and then you're all good. However, in college, it's an expectation that the teacher is probably not going to cover everything that's going to be in the test in the actual classroom. What's important for you to learn how to do as a college student is to identify those other students in the classroom who are just as dedicated, just as serious about their education, just as involved in their learning, and do outside of class study groups on different material. Because oftentimes, depending on the school that you go to, there's so much material that has to be learned and mastered. It can't be done by just one person, or it's really, really difficult to be done by one person. So forming these types of study groups, these types of partnerships and relationships with your fellow classmates, it's called collaborative learning. And sometimes professors do that. They set you up for that in the classroom, but it's also your responsibility as a student to find those relationships and form those important study groups early on. If you ever watch those medical shows where people are in med school or things like that, they're always studying together. They always have a plan. They have their system, they have their cards, they have their study groups, they have their meeting sessions scheduled, and they are doing what they need to do to regularly and effectively get through all the material that's required in the classroom. So that's an important thing. A lot of times students feel like they have to do everything by themselves. They have to learn by themselves. They have to figure it out by themselves. In some situations, some classrooms, some professors, it's not going to be easy for you to figure it out by yourself. Yes, you can try, but it's going to be more difficult. So find those relationships early in the semester to identify those people who are serious about the GPA. It also can be challenging because some professors, or not some professors, some institutions or some majors are really competitive because you're competing against the other people for placement in a specific medical school or a specific program. But it's important for you to develop the skill of how to study in groups and also how to study independently. But both are going to be important for you to be successful in college. So that's one thing. Also, your ability to overcome those challenges, those obstacles that just come with being in college. That first exam, because I always say that first exam is like the first pancake, for lack of a better metaphor. The first exam is like when you are, for those of you who are cooking, I'm not necessarily a great cook, but they say the first pancake is the pancake that you throw away. And for some students, the first exam is fine. But the first exam in all of your classes is your opportunity to get a sense of how your professor is assessing your work. Like, how does he test? How does he or she test? Do they do multiple choice? Do they do short answer? Do they do essay? Do they only cover the information that they presented in class? Do they cover the information that was in the textbook? It's your first chance to really get a sense of what your teacher is looking for. Some professors give study guides. Some professors give you no insight at all about what's going to be on the test. So that first test is something that you need to focus on and pay attention to and learn from those mistakes. Don't just, when you get your grade back or you get your results back from that first test, it's an opportunity for you to actually assess and reflect on, okay, what did I get right? What types of questions did I really do well on? What types of questions did I really not do well on? What was covered that I didn't think was going to be covered? Or did you give yourself your own like practice test or practice session? If you are in those types of study groups, did y'all do like a Quizlet or a type of, game where you all made up questions and you tried to test each other and test yourselves? So this is all a part of the learning process as we transition to the higher level or college level learning, and it's going to be important. Also, what's important when you're talking about the different types of classes that you're going to come across, and there are different types of students. There are some students, and we all fall in the category of one or the other, depending on the topic or the subject of the course. There are students who are naturally good or naturally interested and naturally engaged with material. So I'd say there are two types. There are students who have like verbal and writing confidence, meaning that you like to read about the material, you do a lot of outside reading on the subject, and you enjoy to discuss like the ideas. Like I was this in college, I was an English major. You like the ideas that are presented or the concepts that are presented, and you are really engaged in the discussion. So that's one type of student. There's another type of student, and for courses that emphasize a lot of reading, like those humanities courses, those English courses, those history courses, the philosophy courses, where they have these ideas and these concepts and these readings that are going to be hopefully engaging and interesting to you, you do well in those courses. But the other types of courses, the math and the science courses, so there are people who are really confident and think logically, and for them, math makes the most sense and is completely logical, and you are able to do well in these types of courses. So there are two types. Some people are blessed to be good at both, but there are different courses and different topics that you're going to excel in, and different courses where you're going to need help in. And being able, you should know this by now, since you've been in school for all this time, but being aware of that and being aware of where you will need additional help is going to be important for you to be successful. Because a lot of times your academic identity from high school is going to be carry over to your experience in college, and sometimes it doesn't always translate, especially as I've said before, if you are naturally able to do well in a specific course, you never really had to work hard. Sometimes you will, now that you're in college, in a specific major or in a specific class or with a specific professor with these really high level expectations of you, you're going to have to level up your game. You're going to have to do a lot more work than you're used to. And so if your identity of being like, I'm A student, I'm an AB student, and that doesn't necessarily come across in your first exam, then that can kind of shake your foundation of who you think you are and who you thought you were going to be with regard to your major. A lot of times this happens with students in the sciences, be it engineering, be it pre-med, be it nursing, like those weed out courses that I was talking about earlier. Sometimes students think that first bad grade, or even that first not successful course, means that they are not meant to be in that major. And that's not the case. There's an adjustment period, and you have to learn from your mistakes. So oftentimes students, in my opinion, give up way too early and way too quickly without leveling up their game, doing the work that's required. Most of the things that you want in life, anything that, I think that quote is, anything that you really, really want, it's going to take some effort. It's going to definitely, anything worth having is worth the effort that you need to put into it. So a lot of times students give up too early because they think that it was supposed to be easy or wasn't going to be a challenge. And everything in life that's worth having, that's the quote, everything in life that's worth having is worth doing the work for. So your academic identity is important because it's depending on your past experiences from high school, your past grades from high school, your belief in your ability to do well. And oftentimes that's the difference between students who stay in majors which are difficult, even though they struggle, and students who are quick to leave the major. If you believe, and this is the idea of what they call the growth mindset. If you're not familiar with the growth mindset, the quick definition is the idea that your brain, your mind, your ability to do difficult things can be learned. It's not necessarily either you're good at math or you're not good at math. If you have a growth mindset, you know that your ability to think differently, your ability to change the way your mind works and your brain can understand and do things is something that you can change. So if you have that belief system that, this is something that's difficult, I just need to figure out how to make it work for me, or you have the mindset this is difficult, which means I can't do hard things, it means I need to change my major. That's the difference between a successful growth mindset and a student who has more of a mindset that's, just up to, I guess it just wasn't meant to be for me. So that's important. So that's a part of your identity, your past experiences, and like I said, your past, your belief system in yourself. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about, because we went through this really quickly, and maybe I'll do another session on this, because like I said, I have like 4 more pages of notes that I didn't get to, but it's important because a lot of times students say, or a lot of times students hear, oh, college is hard, college is hard, college is going to be challenging, college is going to be difficult, but they don't necessarily understand how or why it's hard or challenging or difficult. So let me just give you this analogy that one of my colleagues explained very well, in my opinion, to a group of students that we were talking to. So in high school, you are taught the same class for the full year. You're taught content in the same class for the full year. 180 days, I believe, is the time frame here where we are in Philly. In college, you get that same amount of material, or maybe even more, in the span of, if you are on a semester, fall semester, spring semester schedule. I'm not sure how it works if you're in a tri-semester schedule, but you get that same amount of material in 15 weeks. In addition to that, this is why it's hard. So you get all that information compressed into that shorter time frame. In addition to that, there is not a lot usually of opportunities for you to get feedback. And by feedback, I mean, you don't necessarily get exams, weekly exams. You don't necessarily get homework, which is graded with feedback. Many times you get a midterm at the middle of the semester and a final, maybe a paper or project in between. So you have only maybe three to five opportunities for you to get the input or demonstrate your understanding of the material in college. This is why it's hard. Also, in addition to that, in addition to the compressed time frame, in addition to limited opportunities to get feedback on how you're doing, the information that is presented in a way that the professor usually is covering things that they think is important, and what can happen. Like, for example, if you're in a major that requires you to take a class to, like, if you're in a nursing major, you have to pass an exam to actually be a nurse. There's information that you need to know, that maybe the professor didn't teach, that maybe on an exam, like maybe the department has an exam that all nursing students take, but the professor didn't cover it. So the point is that you are responsible for learning material that wasn't necessarily explicitly taught to you in the classroom. It is your job as a student to figure out some of that stuff and or teach yourself some of that stuff. So all of that are a little bit of what makes college hard. Not adding to the social parts of being independent, being on your own for the most part, trying to figure out your roommate situation, trying to figure out relationships, like all the other stuff, the emotional stuff, the psychological stuff, the social stuff. So this is just the academic stuff. So that is among the many things that makes college hard for students. So if you never understood why people say college is hard, that's my breakdown of why it's hard. There's a lot of things that you have to learn quickly. The stakes are very high for you, especially if you have to have a certain GPA for scholarships, especially if you have expectations from family and friends who are back home and don't really understand the full extent of what is being asked of you. And they may also be other things going on at home, personal things that are kind of distracting you or stressing you out from being able to put all your attention and energy into being a full college student. So that's why college is hard. And I just wanted to give that synopsis to people, both family members and also students who have never been to college. And that's why I always say it's important for students to have an opportunity at some point during the high school period experience. If you are a parent of a high school student, or if you are a high school student, it's important to get a sense of what this is really like. I can tell you and explain to you why it's hard, but until you actually experience all of the ups and downs and the pulls on your attention and the distractions and the demands from professors and figuring out how to do college, until you actually experience that, it's really hard to like convince students. That's often the most difficult thing in my office. Like I said earlier, we work in academic support, is to convince students that the magical thinking that worked in high school, oh, it'll all work out. Oh, I'll just figure it out eventually. Oh, I'll pass. It doesn't work in high school. It doesn't work in college because of all of those factors: the compressed time, the limited feedback, the not necessarily learning effectively. Because to tell the truth, professors are experts in their discipline. They're experts in their field. They're not experts in communicating and teaching and conveying, these difficult concepts, these foreign concepts. And some professors have a mindset is if you don't get it, then you just weren't meant to be in this major. And I've heard stories about that many times. So that's also important as to why I say it's important to do a strategic course selection. Look up those professors on Rate My Professor. Talk to upperclassmen about, who's a good professor, who's not a good professor. Not who's easy and who's hard, but who is a good teacher, who is understanding and flexible. And I think I'll do this in another session because I'm out of 30 minutes. I'll do like a reel or something on it because there is I'm looking for the paper. It's they did a study on for students and they researched. The title of it is Barriers and Potential Aids to Academic Success. And it says what student says hurt and what helps them in class. So I'll do a separate session on that, probably in a reel. But there are definitely things, and one of the things that they mention here, which is why I brought it up, is that students or they wish that professors were, number one, more flexible with deadlines and things like that, and also more clear with regard to their expectations. Because the professor can give you an assignment, and this often happens with reading assignments. They can give you an assignment to write a paper on this, but they don't really give you more explicit instructions or directions about what their expectations are. So that ambiguity can sometimes throw students off and stress students out. And one of the resources that we use that I work, that is offered in the center where I work is like writing. So oftentimes students don't reach out to these resources because sometimes a tutor can help you figure it out. Sometimes an upperclassman can help you figure out like all the different things that are part of just the learning experience in college. So that 30 minutes went by really fast. Like I said, I had a whole bunch of other things that I wanted to talk about, but I think I covered my main points. And let me just share this last one because I thought it was really important or really telling. Because when you are a high school student and you are coming into the college classroom for the first time, you have a certain mindset. And let me find that paper so I can quote it well. You have certain mindsets that are going to either serve you in being successful in the classroom or that are going to limit you in being successful in the classroom. And so let me, here it is. So when students come into the classroom, they have specific mindsets. And that impacts their ability to be successful in the class or their ability to get the full value of the class. They're coming in with their own notions. Like, okay, so like I said, you usually have your set schedule, like an English class, a math class, a science class, could be a history class, elective, FYO class, not FYO, but it's like an orientation class. So you go into the classroom and based on your schedule and your experience, you say, this course is going to be helpful for me. Because I'm going to be a science major and I need science classes. So you like this math class or you think this math class is going to help you to be successful. So your idea about how valuable the course is will impact your ability to stay focused, to get your full value and your full energy from it. Also, your past experiences from high school. So for example, if you were not good in writing or you were not good in English or you were not good in high school, or in math, then you're going to bring that past experience with you to the college classroom. That's also going to impact your ability to want to reach out for help, your ability to think that you're going to be successful, your belief system. So that's important. Your perception of how difficult the course is going to be based on the professor's teaching style, based on the syllabus, based on what you've heard about the professor, what you've heard about the course. All of that is going to affect your ability to be successful. And also the amount of work that the professor is asking you to do. Are they asking you to do 5 and 10 page papers? Are they asking you to do a lot of work in reading outside the classroom? So all of those factors are impacting your ability or your perception and your belief system of your ability to be successful in that class. And that belief system will, in fact, affect your grade in a class, because what you believe, if you believe that, I've never been good in math, I'm going to barely pass this class, then that belief system is going to affect your ability to ask for help, your ability to stay engaged and focused and attentive and do what's required, do those study groups, do what's required to be successful in the class. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about academic mindset and the college confidence that's required. And that is important. So my last recommendation for parents and or students is, if you do have some negative mindsets or negative limiting beliefs about your ability in certain subjects, then that is something that you can work on this summer. If you are not necessarily the best writer or not necessarily a fan of reading, then there are some times you can take classes either for free. Coursera is another option. There are a bunch of online ways to take classes. You can take a class at your local community college just to level up your skills, so that this 3 months over the summer that's off, is your brain is not stagnating and not not willing to do the discipline that's required for you to be successful in college. Because like I said, in college the stakes are higher. It's another level. You're paying for this. It can take you longer if you don't take it seriously. So it's actually can be a costly experience for you to learn by failing. So that is all I wanted to talk about today. I hope this was valuable. I did cover a lot, but like I said, there's a lot that goes into the academic momentum that's required for being successful. So again, making sure you take and pass the amount of credits that's going to let you graduate in 4 years. Making sure that you are passing those gateway courses or those weed out courses, especially if you're in those STEM majors. Making sure that you have the opportunities to level up your confidence and not let your limiting beliefs or your limiting mindsets about past experiences or your beliefs about your ability to be successful in a difficult major or in any major to limit your ability to be successful in college. So that's it for today. I hope you all found this useful. If so, definitely give me a heart or a like. Definitely, if you think someone is going to find this useful, definitely share this with them. We will be back next week. I think this is week 7. So I think we have definitely 2 more weeks left for the Momentum Mondays. I actually will be starting to teach a class next week. So definitely 2 more weeks I will schedule, and then we'll see exactly if I have enough energy to actually do the class and this in the evenings. So definitely 2 more sessions. The next 2 sessions, actually, I don't remember what the next 2 sessions are, but I will be posting those a little bit later. We still have a lot to talk about. Like I said, I started early because June, July, and August will go by fast, and there is a lot to do. So if you have not yet registered for your orientation class, get those early dates, get your schedule in order, take those placement tests seriously, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.